chances are you've made some kind of mistake today, but the consequences for that is not going to be too steep. But once we're looking at the consequences for making small mistakes when we're selling a house, you can start taking away big dollar amounts from your bottom line for making any kind of those mistakes. My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm a realtor with Keller in South Central Alaska, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. And today, I'm going to be talking about the top 5 mistakes that I see sellers make. And these are seemingly small matters that actually do make a big difference in the grand scheme, kind of depending on this specific property. Before we get started though, make sure that you give this video a like, subscribe if you haven't done so already to receive more information like this in the future, and let's go and jump into today's video. Now, the first mistake that I see sellers make is using low quality photos. Okay, so in the market that we are currently in, these little iPhone photos that you go and take yourself when you're trying to save a couple $100 on the photos, or you've got a camera, which I've got a camera. I'm looking at a camera right now. It's a nice camera. I'm not going to use that camera to try to go and save myself a couple $100 of professional photos, because it's not just the equipment, it is also the editing that the photographer is paying for, to have somebody go in there and make sure that it's going to pop and all the grading is where it needs to be, where it's going to stand out in a good way. The other aspect is they're going to have much better range on the lenses, and they're going to understand the angles a lot better for what the consumer for houses are really looking for. What a consumer is looking for on shopping for clothes is going to be different for what they're looking for shopping for a house, and a real estate photographer is going to understand specifically in that industry what it is that's popular and what's working and what's not. So yes, make sure we use good, high quality photos in order to market your house, and make sure that we get put on the best ground that we possibly can to really make sure that your house gets its fair day in court. Because I've seen a lot of houses where they just use these iPhone photos and they look horrendous. They stand out in a bad way because everyone else, 99% of them, are using professional level photography these days. So iPhone photos are something that's obviously just an amateur, which I'm sorry to say is you or I, using, nice gear, but, ultimately we don't have the experience to fully leverage it and make sure it gets its full potential. So any of those photos really stand out in a bad way, and we don't want that. So yes, use professional photography. The second big mistake that I see sellers make is focusing on stuff that they feel like they have a lot of control over, but don't really deliver a lot of results. So what I mean by that is, let me give you an example. The past couple months, we've seen the market kind of swinging back more into being a balanced market. We're not quite there yet, still a seller's market, but we're starting to see it shift more back into being a balanced market. And we're starting to see issues like flyers start to come up again, because houses are no longer selling on the first day. They may sit there for a couple weeks. And when that happens, it's normal for a lot of people to start feeling anxiety, start looking around, start critiquing everything. And you start looking at stuff like, okay, maybe we need more flyers. Maybe we need to do more open houses. Maybe we just need to work harder. And I certainly understand certain aspects of that. Sometimes we do need to adjust that, but stuff like flyers and open houses, only about, I think it's like 1 or 3% of houses that have open houses actually sell because of the open house. And with flyers, it's pretty abysmal. I think it's less than 1%, like 0.11 something percent. Like it's really, really low. Consumer these days are looking online, and then they're going to a location. They're not going to go, okay, we're ready to start looking at houses, load everyone up, let's go find some flyers. People don't do that these days. But being able to control that flyer box and being able to control stuff like that, it gives you a sense of control, which, I'm all for trying to make sure that people have that sense of being in control, because they are, but we need to make sure we're controlling the stuff we can actually control that produce results. So the biggest things that are going to sell a house is the location, the condition, and it's going to be the price. Sometimes layout too. We can't really do a whole lot about that though. Those are going to be the things that really are going to decide whether or not the house is going to sell. And getting distracted, focusing on, flyer, the font and the color and all that, it's going to give you a sense of control, and it's probably also going to be a waste of time if we don't have these other aspects really appealing to the buyer. The third big mistake that I see sellers make is depending way too heavily on marketing to sell a house. Now, let me explain this a little bit here. So when we are putting the house onto the market, we are wanting to make sure that we have the property in a condition that it's going to sell, that people are going to like it, people are going to like the price, they're going to like the location. Ultimately, though, if people do not like the house, like no amount of marketing is going to overcome that. They're going to see it, and they're going to see it over and over and over and over and over, and they're not likely to change their mind about it. The best time to get an offer on a house is going to be when it is new and fresh on the market. So for that reason, that's why we push so hard when we're first starting to make sure that we can get it in front of as many people as we possibly can from day one. Once we start going on longer, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, however long we've been on the market, it starts getting a little more challenging, and we have to start sitting down and, seeing if we need to have discussions about price adjustments, or, maybe we're, not putting this in front of the right people, and we can start having that discussion. But just trying to do guerrilla marketing and thinking that that's going to overcome those other items I mentioned before, the location, condition, or the price, it's going to be a losing proposition, and it's just going to cause more frustration for everybody involved. Let's take a break real quick here. For those of you who've been watching for a bit, you do know that I have a seller guide for those of you considering getting your property on the market in the near future. If that is something that would interest you, do make sure that you reach out to me on my website, register in the link down below. Make sure you put seller guide in the comment section so I know what to send you. Now, let's go and finish today's video. The fourth biggest mistake that I've seen sellers make is not making their home available for showings. Now, we're all busy, okay? We understand you've got kids, you've got work, you've got pets, you've got all this stuff going on, but so do the buyers. And the fact of the matter is that if we give them a really, really tight window in which they have to get in there, I'm not saying it's impossible, but our odds of getting a lot of people in there to look at it, make offers, and potentially setting up the scenario where we have competing offers where we can actually get as much for you as we possibly can in that scenario, that becomes, I'm not going to say impossible, but nearly impossible if we have a super short window in which we can do showings. Now, sometimes if tenants are involved, it is what it is, but if you have control over our schedule, with you living there currently, the advice is always make it as available as we possibly can, within boundaries, like nothing, no showings beyond a certain time of the day, or, no showings beyond, this early in the morning. I think that's perfectly reasonable, but, we want to make it as available as we possibly can, because that's going to set you up for success the best. And the fifth tip that I'm going to give you here is people who overprice their property. Now, this is very, very easy to do. As homeowners, we see the value in our property probably more so than other people. So believe me, I understand it. But if a property is overpriced nowadays, with buyers on Zillow and looking at all these other websites, they can see properties instantly side by side. Gone are the days where we can be like 20, 30, 40, however many $1,000s overpriced compared to everybody else. And, the buyers just never realize it. They instantly have all this information right there in front of them, and they can see, oh, well, I do like this one, blah, blah, blah. I like the area, but they look like they're way overpriced. Let's look at this one over here that's about $40,000 less and offers pretty much the same thing. So with instant access, we need to make sure that we are staying ahead of the market, make sure we're priced to where a buyer is going to find it attractive. Because, like I said, if we are in a position where the property isn't sold within the first couple of weeks, then it's not impossible, but it starts becoming more challenging, because we start looking like aged produce at the supermarket. And if we're going to get really good competitive terms for you, it needs to be within the first couple of weeks usually, because that's where we have the most interest. That's where we have the most chance of multiple offers and multiple buyers coming in and wanting the property. And that's really the dream. That's what we're shooting for. So I sure hope this has been useful for you. If it has, make sure you give this video a like. If you have any further questions for me, do make sure you reach out to me on my website. I'd be more than happy to answer any other questions for you that you might have. And like I said, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.